My name is Adam Lowenthal. I'm the founder and CEO of Aldoa, which is a modern project management and financial tracking software package built specifically for consultants and engineers. Uh, and I imagine a lot of you on this call probably got into this profession because you're an engineer or a geologist or another scientific profession. And I think it's pretty fair to say that nobody here wants to be spending their time on tracking budgets and cutting invoices. Engineers want to design, to build, to implement, not spend time on administrative work. But unfortunately, staying on top of your project level finances is absolutely necessary to ensure profitability, which is important even if you are focused on the scientific and engineering side of your work. So today, I want to accomplish two things. First, I want to talk about some of the common pitfalls and traps that we see consultants and engineers fall into when managing project level finances. And then I want to talk about some best practices on how to solve them, including using integrated software solutions like Aldoa. So, when I talk to my customers here at Aldoa, or I just speak with consulting and engineering firms, both big and small, sophisticated and new startups, we hear some pretty similar pain points related to project level finances. I generally find a few common complaints. First, we hear that staying on top of T&M budgets and knowing how much of your budget is remaining in real time is a pretty manual process, right? Project managers will have an Excel sheet that tracks expenditures versus the budget, but that in itself presents some real problems. First of all, being that every project manager has their own way of doing things. So if you are a higher level manager or a business owner, it's pretty hard to oversee the health of your business as a whole when you need to comb through hundreds of Excel files, each with different formatting and some that are impossible to find on different folder structures on your computer. Also, when you're using Excel for budgeting, it's pretty easy to forget to update a labor rate, right? Let's say end of the year or halfway through the year, your project managers are billing at 200 versus 150. You need to make sure that everyone is aware of that when they're, building out estimates, and it's pretty easy to miss. For those of you in the crowd that are using software to track your budgets and not using Excel, we still hear some common problems, right? First is that a lot of the financial packages in this industry, even the more well-known ones, struggle with real-time updates. And that's one of the big sort of pains from our customers is, hey, we got onboarded onto this platform, but budget expenditures don't get updated until end of the month billing. So let's say I have a $50,000 budget and I'm spending 30K in month one. I won't know that budget expenditure has occurred until my accounting team has billed it, right? That can lead to some pretty tricky client conversations, especially when you've spent substantially more than you've thought and your system isn't notifying you until 3 weeks after that problem happened. Another really common complaint we hear is there tends to be some discrepancies between budget tracking when you talk to a project manager versus an accountant. Uh, and I know some of you in the crowd right now listening, some of you are PMs, I know, and others might be more on the accounting side of things. So I'm sure you have sort of both perspectives to go off of this. But a PM is tracking who is billing hours to their project, subcontractor invoices, chargeable expenses, but the accounting side of the house has a totally different number after write-offs and transfers and markups, and reconciling these two budget tracking metrics manually. I hear a lot of our customers doing monthly meetings, weekly phone calls. That's a real pain. If you're managing 10 or 100, we have some clients with 10 employees who have 300 projects. If you're managing that all at once, all of those reconciliations, trusting that that's happening on a regular basis is not so trustworthy. The last piece on sort of common pitfalls that we see is, and this is a big one, a lot of our customers get angry client calls from developers and whoever it may be, when the breakdowns of expenses on invoices don't line up with tasks or phases outlined in the proposal, right? If you're using QuickBooks or any software platform that doesn't make it easy for you to track time and expenses by task of the budget, right? That's a real problem. If your proposal to your client is broken down by 3 tasks, and then your invoice doesn't show what task billing items are associated with, that is one of what we call the deadly invoicing sins that is bound to get some client attention. Not only are clients going to ask about it, but if you can't track time and expenses by budget task, you're going to have no idea which tasks are profitable, which tasks, historically tend to go over budget. And you're never going to have the foresight to be able to say, this task is running over. I'm going to push some costs from one task to another and adjust things without needing a formal change order from your client. So these are all some real problems when it comes to managing your project financials using spreadsheets, outdated systems, solutions that were not built for consultants and engineers that sort of don't track those project level finances the way that you're accustomed to it. If you're one of the people in the audience right now who is listening about this and something that I just said resonated with you, rest alone, you are not alone. This is very common in the industry. We have talked to some firms that were over 1,000 employees, where project managers are still tracking their budgets in Excel. And that's a real problem for the reasons that we've mentioned before. So I wanted to take a second, now that I've given you sort of a lay of the land of common problems, right? And walk you through what all-in-one integrated solutions like Aldoa are able to do. And before I show my screen, what I mean by sort of all-in-one solutions are software packages that were built for the entire life cycle of a project, right? From proposal and budgeting to that end-of-month invoicing and being able to track all of your financials in real time. So I'm going to share my screen out for a second. So here's sharing out my whole screen. And what I have open right now is Aldoa. Aldoa is a cloud-based project management and financial tracking system. And you see when you log in for the first time, you can get a list of all of your projects. And let me just jump into a project, this Red Basin commercial lots 3, 4, and 5, right? And I'm going to spend a little bit of time walking through what it looks like using an all-in-one integrated solution to track the life of your project financials from budget to invoicing, all in one place without that need for reconciliation or Excel files. So let's start at where most projects start, which is the budget. You can see here that I have built out a full time and materials budget with tasks and subtasks. So here I have the design phase broken down into 2 subtasks, lots 3 and 4 and lot 5, both of them built out with time and materials. So you can see I have project manager working 20 hours, partner working 30 hours, a field tech working 20 hours. I've included a drafting subcontractor for 3 days at $3,000 a day. And all of these sort of rates that you see live in the software itself. So you don't need to make sure that your project managers are tracking things accurately and making sure that they update for end of year rate changes. All of that lives in this software. So it's sort of a template that applies to all of your projects. You see here, I have the implementation phase as well. And for implementation, if I open this up, I have a labor estimate. This one is just tops down. This is saying, hey, I'm going to spend $25K on labor. I have some additional subcontractor expenses. And then I have some chargeable and reimbursable expenses. I have lab tests, inspections, 5 days of inspections at $200 a day, a lump sum sort of other expenses charge, right? And editing this budget is quite easy, by the way. You can just jump in, and let's say we want to add another rate to this. We have project managers, partners, field tech, but I can add another rate and say, okay, staff scientist. I also want a staff scientist who's going to be working 10 hours on this. I can just click that, lock my budget, and there you go. It updates the estimates in real time. The other really cool thing about doing this in your software platform all in one place is that you don't need to repeat it in Excel to send to your clients. I can just download the budget, right? I download the budget. Let me open this up, and you'll see that I have this red basin commercial lot budget directly in Excel with all my phases, sub phases, all of the labor estimates with hours, rates, markups, total amounts. Here's my huge labor rate table. I have my equipment rate table, my budget summary, and you can manipulate this file as you see fit to send to your clients. Once you have a budget live in an integrated system like Aldoa, you don't need to track your expenditures manually in Excel. And that is the beauty of this. So let me go to my budget dashboard. And this is showing me in real time how much of my budget has actually been spent. So you can see I have my entire budget left, $82,000. I've budgeted $51K for labor, around $30,000 for subcontractors, a small amount for expenses. All of those are showing in real time. I haven't touched this project. Nothing has been billed against it. And as you see, I'm going to sort of walk through how simple it is to add expenses and time to your budget, and in real time, have your project managers being able to know how much of the budget is remaining without waiting till accounting calls them at the end of the month. So let's start with timesheets. I'm a project manager. I'm coming in at the end of my week, and I'm going to add my time. I can search for my projects in the database. Importantly, I can select which phase of the budget I'm billing for. So if you recall, I had my design phase and my implementation phase. Within my design phase, I had lots 3 and 4 and lot 5 broken out. So I can bill towards lot 5 as a project manager. I can select some sort of, codes or notes to associate with the timesheets. These can be predetermined or free-flowing. So let's say I'm working on project, developing project plans, and today is October 30th. I spent 4 hours. I can leave a note saying, working on project plans for lot 5 and save my time. And you'll see that this gets saved automatically to my timesheet. Now, again, one of the beautiful things about having an integrated system is a lot of you in the audience right now who are using Excel or QuickBooks and managing budgets in Excel, right? You might be saying, okay, it's time to go to Excel and say that Adam put 4 hours on his timesheet with some hourly rate. And how is my budget looking? In Aldoa, that is not the case. I can go directly into my project. And again, let's just jump into this budget dashboard. My hours have populated. I can see I've spent $700 of this budget. I didn't have to do anything to update this. All I did was enter my timesheet, and everything will update in real time. The other beauty of this is you can break it down by task. So let's say I just want to see it for the design phase, right? That's $700. How is that sort of breakdown associated with just that one phase of the budget? Or was it just lot 5? I just want to see that lot 5 estimate of $700 out of that $25,000 spent, right? Now, again, you can do this with all different sort of buckets of costs. I just walked through timesheets a little. And again, the key with timesheets here and the key of breaking down your budgets into tasks and phases is that you can instruct your employees, scientists, engineers, project managers, whoever it may be, to be billing towards the specific tasks of the budget. This is really important for creating accurate invoices, but also, as we discussed, for knowing which parts of your budget are profitable. So next time you bid that project, you can say, last time I thought this design phase for a similar scope of work was going to cost us $30,000, and we went over by 40%. So you can sort of adjust and make sure that you're being profitable, not just on a type of project basis, but on a type of task of the budget basis. Let's go into some expenses. So again, I've sort of showed time. Let's talk about chargeable or reimbursable expenses. Let's say it's sort of the end of the day. I'm going to go into here and add an expense. And I have a rate table of expenses that I commonly charge my customers for. And let's say what that could be. So for example, standard inspection. let's say in my company internally, we charge inspections on just a billable rate per day for quantity of inspection. So I have done, let's say, 5 inspections over the past week at 200 per. These rates are set up in your settings page already so that people can't enter in the wrong rate for a project. And all I have to do is assign it to a specific phase and a specific subphase. I can leave a note, or I can just add that expense. You can upload attachments, receipts, whatever it may be. And if we go to the dashboard, you can see that that expense gets updated in real time. Now, let's say the last sort of missing piece on here being subcontractor spends. I know that sort of managing cash flow and knowing when you're paying your subs and when that work has been done is sort of a pain point for a lot of businesses in this space. We try and make sort of payable invoice management as easy as possible. If, hey, you get that payable, enter it in the system. Enter in the invoice number. Let's say invoice. I'm just going to make up a number. I can select which subcontractor it was. It's Tom's Drilling Company. And let's say it was $25,000. You can also designate markups ahead of time. So let's say, hey, when it's time to bill my client for this, they're paying a 20% markup, right? My total is going to be $30,000. I received this today on the 30th. Payment terms are net 30, so it automatically calculates the payment due. And again, I'm just going to select the phase of the project it's associated with, add this invoice. And you can see we get brought to a screen with just a summary page. Here's who the subcontractor was, their address, email, phone number. We can upload attachments. We can sort of track when payments have been paid. And of course, if I jump into the subcontractor spend in the budget, you can see that it shows me in real time that 88% of my budget has been depleted on the subcontractor side of things. So that's a fairly good overview of how powerful it is to have real-time budget tracking in the system. No longer have to look at Excel and QuickBooks and sort of reconcile different files. And by the way, if you want to jump between different projects, right? Everything I'm showing for you today is this Red Basin commercial lot. I can very quickly just go to a different project. There are tabs at the top. Now I'm in my Shelter Haven engineering and environmental project, and I can very quickly, as a project manager, just jump between projects and see exactly how I'm trending in real time. I'm going to show invoicing in a second to sort of round things out, but just to jump in, I know a bunch of you, if you have any questions, I will open the floor to Q&A at the end of this, so please put your questions in comments, and we will get to you towards the end of the conversation. Lastly, and maybe more important for some of the accounting personnel on this call versus project managers, what about when it's time to invoice, right? We have that whole process where accounting calls project manager and says, hey, is this really, and Elise, I think I just got your hand up. I'll come to you in 1 second right after this receivables. But an accountant might come to you and say, hey, are we transferring this? What are we doing with this, right? In Aldoa, there's a ton of ways to cut invoices. You can do it on a project by project basis, like what I'm about to show you first. So let's say Red Basin, it's the end of the month, it's time to invoice. I'm going to generate a new invoice. I can select my service day. Let's say it's, for the month of October I'm billing for. I can add this invoice. And then I can very quickly add my labor, subcontractor invoices, and expenses to this invoice, right? So let's say for this design and implementation phase, I can see exactly where my time is, right? This project manager role, I budgeted 20 hours. I have previously billed none of it because this is a fresh project. And if you remember, I logged 4 hours on my timesheet before. So let's select which time I want to add to this invoice, right? Here's my project manager. You remember I left that note working on project plans for lot 5. I'm going to confirm that I'm adding all 4 of those hours to my invoice. And the beauty of this is you can build it by phase, right? So that implementation phase doesn't have any hours associated with it. Then I can go to my subcontractor tab and look, here's the subcontractor for Tom's Drilling that I set up with that $25,000 amount, 20% markup. I'm going to add that. If I don't want my clients to see it's Tom's Drilling, I can override the name, say drilling services, right? Let's say the markup is actually supposed to be 25%. I can increase that immediately here. Finally, same for expenses. So I have that standard inspection, right? I can just click the plus, add that to my invoice. That's it. If I wanted to add some additional fees, I can add additional fees. Let's say it's I get some laughs out of this. Sometimes it's a bad client fee. A client's really annoying you and you want to add a little bit. I know that doesn't always happen, but it's a contingency, let's say. I can add a flat or a percent fee, and that's going to be $500. It's very easy to sort of customize and add what you're adding to an invoice. And the beauty of it is also that you can design these invoices directly in the application, right? And you can do it by phase and by subphase. You can see here, I'm breaking down design phase, and there's nothing in the implementation phase. So that when your clients get this invoice, they can see exactly what phase of work this invoiced amount is associated with. And again, if I wanted to do the same thing for subcontractors and all of my expenses, I can lump those in to the design phase, right? So here I have the design phase, I have my hours, I have my standard inspections, and then on the implementation phase, I have my drilling services. And then other items, I have my contingency fee. We've tried to build this in a way that you can customize it as you wish, right? You can add custom footers, you can add payment terms, you can customize it with your logo here. You can add sort of all these additional toggles on the left-hand side of saying, you know, hey, I want to add sort of a custom field. So let's say this is a purchase order number 2128, right? And I want to highlight that in red when I send this invoice. That's one of the things you can do. Let's say you have codes associated with the phase of your budget. You know, design was 001, implementation was 002. You can add that onto the invoice very quickly. And again, if I wanted to see breakdowns of all of this, right? Let's see, I have my labor breakdown. This will show me the time entries that I put in my timesheet with the roles, the notes, the hours, and the rates. Very simply, if I added backups of subcontractor invoices with actual PDFs, I can attach those to the invoice as well. I can preview it. And again, see this PO number is now in red. I have all of my billable activity broken down by phase of the budget. I have my backups here. I can publish this invoice and I am good to go. This invoice is published. I've successfully uploaded this file. I can preview what it looks like. I can download it. And I can sort of track when these payments are coming in, right? So I can download sort of these invoices, open this up in preview, and be able to send this directly to my customers. You can also send it directly from the application with a payment link to accept credit cards. And again, tying this sort of back full circle, my budget dashboard can also track invoiced amount or paid amount, right? So I can show how much open accounts receivable is, and this is the sum of all my published invoices that have not been marked as paid. I can track my amount billed or unbilled, and this number is negative because I've billed the client for more than I've actually expended on the project, which is not a bad problem to have. And yeah, then again, just to sort of tie it all together, this is what an integrated system can do for you, where you aren't managing Excel files. Your project managers and your accountants aren't spending 2 hours a week of time that could be used to bill your clients to talk about how budgets are trending and why there are discrepancies and write-offs and transfers. And that is a very high-level overview of how integrated systems can help.